Nam-bhajan at the level of prem sambhog. Last year we were discussing vipralamba prem, bhajan at the level of vipralamba prem, and there's no more inclusion of the ajatarati sadhakas at this point, because this level of nam-bhajan in its true form is only for the Bhava Bhaktas, because this is their purview. However, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he intended, and his son carried out his intention, he intended the bhaktas to go through all the yamas, ashtayamas, and chant Nam, and read the ensuing verses and accompanying verses, and see what happens. In other words, progress will happen. And this practice was instituted, and as Shachinandan, Pujyapad Shachinandan Swami Maharaj and I discussed, and he also researched a little bit, and even going on to this day, in the Bhaktisiddhanta, dutifully following his father, he instituted this in all the Gaudiya months and in Kartik this month. And they would stay home and go through all the yamas every day. They would sit together and discuss pieces of each yama, a verse or two from each yama, and the bhajans from each yama. Each Astakaliya, we say. We're more familiar with Astakaliya, Ashtayam. And this way have contact with these high subjects. And the analogy I've used last year just kind of popped up. So if you have because we're oriented to Indian analogies, living in India, as Prabhupada was speaking his very interesting village-oriented analogies to present Krishna consciousness. But as we read more and more Shastras, we found that many of these analogies about camels and all these things, animals, and they're actually in Shastra. There are verses like that in Sanskrit, in different Puranas, Bhagavad Purana, later cantos, and about these Swavidvrashta, Kare, and all these things. And we think it's a village experience, but so is my example that when you're whitewashing a wall, which means you mix limestone powder and water, and the grayish-black cement, you want to color that and prepare it for the chosen color, yellow, blue, whatever. So the walls of our heart, this analogy that we use, the walls of our heart are like this, let's say, gray to black cement, raw cement, and we want them to be colored. So Vaidhi sadhana is the process of doing the undercoat. For those that have experience with painting or preparing the canvas, if you're an artist, you get a piece of raw canvas, you put some white paint on it to give a background and to enhance the colors you apply there and upon. So Vaidhi sadhana, we whitewash the heart. Chetodarbana Marjanam is the process of whitewashing the walls of the heart with Harikatha, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. And then gradually, when the white color, finally we've got white wall. We put enough applications of this chuna, it's called chuna, limestone, this watery, white water, 1 and 2 and 3, and finally, now it's white. Now I can apply the color. The color means rag. The word rag means, R-A-G-A, we say rag. R-A-G-A, rag means color. So when the wall is prepared, then you can apply the color. So now we color the walls. So this is Bhagavad Sadhana, coloring the walls. And then you may, because if you don't know anything about painting, you may have white base and then you make yellow, because you want to bring out some yellow in the colors you apply on top of that. And as you go on to Bhava and Prema, then so many, not only colors are there, but forms are there, and trees and people and expressions, and that's the Leela. That paintings move and they speak and they feel and they communicate. For the sensitive, they teach college courses and art appreciation develop the aesthetic sense of one's, let's say, existence. So bhakti is about developing one's aesthetic sense of love for Krishna. It starts off pretty colorless. Starts out pretty non-existent to some extent. Then we build a foundation, then we build walls, and then we start whitewashing them, then we started coloring them, then we fill in the colors and add people, and then we enter into the wall, and we go through the wall. So this is, we're discussing Bhava Bhakti, and this is Adhiruddha, which has 6 characteristics, and I think we're on number 4, this Adhiruddha Bhav, and this is in separation. This is Mohan. And it's because Mohan has different characteristics, and one of them we explained yesterday, that it causes sorrow to the entire world. And when Radharani is developing this Mohan, which is, there's Madan Mohan. Madan is an association, and Mohan, the broad categories. When she's experiencing this in separation from Krishna, the unhappiness of Radharani's heart, it spreads throughout the universe. But the unique aspect of Radharani, because she's Ladini Shakti, and everything that emanates from her is ultimately delightful, charming, satisfying, blissful, because she's the bliss potency. So if you put something in the ocean, you dip it in the ocean, when it comes out of the ocean it's wet. And then on top of that wetness you may spray something or add something, but the base of it is wet. So when Radharani is experiencing Krishna, she's separated from Krishna, and she's feeling, her heart rises, and the Sthayi Bhav gets stimulated. Her permanent loving sentiments towards Krishna become stimulated by a thought, by a remembrance, by a sight, by seeing a tamal tree or a lila stali, or even hearing Krishna's name, or even seeing a simple cloud passing in the sky. And that stimulates her bhav, and to such an extent that it expresses different sattvic bhavs, going to the level of sudipta, which is totally, absolutely inflamed. Sudeep, deep means Deepavali, brilliantly effulgent. And it's, as the one Acharya said, he said it's pleasantly piercing and piercingly pleasant. For those who know English to some extent, they can appreciate the poetry of the expression. The very intensity of Radharani's love and separation gives it an edge, which is pleasantly piercing and piercingly pleasant. I think I didn't mention that yesterday. I just mentioned that it's, one Acharya said, it's like poison nectar. We know about sweet rice, but sweet rice mixed with cyanide may not be so appreciative. Cyanide is a very powerful poison. And Kaviraj Goswami, when he's describing Radharani's Adhiruddha Mohan Bhav, sometimes called Mohan Aikya, he says that this degree, this pitch, this intensity of Radharani's love, because it's all about, we have art appreciation courses. Well, Sadhana Bhakti, Raghunath Sadhana Bhakti is all about love appreciation courses. To appreciate love of the Parishads and the direct expansions of Krishna, whom we want to associate with and serve with and live with eternally. It's not a construct, it's not a concept. It's not a meditation, it's a reality. It's a dynamic, living, feeling, acting, living reality which we want to become part of. This is the sum and substance of our ambition and our activities. So we want to hear about it. And although it's obviously inconceivable and unfathomable and seems like foreign language in one sense, there's an uncanny quality of attraction in it all somehow. It compels us to want to hear more. So Krishna's Kaviraj, he says that this love, this Adhiruddha Mahabhav of Mohan level or stage, it's like hot sugar cane juice. I'm sure you're too familiar with it. He said it's too sweet to resist and too hot to drink. You imagine someone, we all have some samskaras for the Sunday feast sweet rice. We have some of us have very strong samskaras. And in the West, that samskara comes in the form of cold sweet rice. Very relishable cold sweet rice. Not too cold, but cold enough to relish nicely. Then you come to India, to Mayapur, to the feast after Gaur Purnim, and then they serve out boiling hot sweet rice. So when you see the sweet rice, that sight is an udipan or udipan, excitant, stimulant. Oh yes, and then that sense impulse passes across the surface of the chitta, and then they find some friend there in terms of a sanskara. Sweet rice sanskara, boing! And then, oh, sweet rice, oh, it's creamy, it's milky. And then rising from that sanskara to enjoy sweet rice or not enjoy it, either way, aversion or attraction creates some equal sanskaras, comes vasana, a desire. And it was a deep samskara, it's a strong vasana. Wow, I want some now. And then they serve that and you go, oh! They put it on your plate. And it spreads out and you go, oh, it's so sweet. Oh, it smells so good. And then you go, oh! Wow! It's steaming hot. Hot sweet rice. Hey, they don't know how to make sweet rice here. Don't they have refrigerators? They say, what kind of sweet rice? Prabhu, this is India. They don't even have electricity. What to speak of refrigerators or fridges or whatever you say. Okay, so then somehow you manage to go to the side of your leaf plate and you rip off a little piece of leaf, because necessity is the mother of invention. So you have to make a fast spoon, right? So then you push the sweet rice this way and you're just like salivating, your eyes are watering, it's like, this is so frustrating. And finally you get some off to the side and you pick it up. Hell, it's still like boiling hot. You can't wait anymore because you're sweet. And it's India, sometimes you only get sweet rice every 10 days or something. So then you go, oh! So this is our extremely perverted and lokic material experience of something that's too sweet to resist and too hot to drink. So somehow this analogy, which is somewhat rational and relatable, even at way down line than our level, is presented by our most munificent guardian of devotion, Krishna's Kaviraj. Here it is, kids, here's the analogy. Run with it. So this is where I took myself, and you also. So I hope it wasn't a wild goose chase. But now let's go on more of these symptoms. We read about that, and we read about another amazing symptom of Adiruddha Mahabhav, Mohan level. This was phenomenal. And as we know, anything good is worth repeating. Otherwise, why do we ever pick up our bead bag every day? Right? It's good, so we repeat it. And it's nice. So this is review. So yesterday, one of the characteristics, there's 6 mentioned, and generally we're familiar more with the 6th one, but which is a subcategory of Mohan Adiruddha Mahabhav. But one of the characteristics of all of these, of this Mohan Bhav, is that it's called, what is it, fainting? It was saying fainting, it says exactly. Krishna faints. That's listed, that's what it says in Ujjvala Nilamani. Krishna faints. And because this Mahabhav, of course, this Mohan Adiruddha Mahabhav, is only Radharani has this treasury in her heart. And that treasury of love is for Krishna, obviously. And when Radharani enters this most incredible state in separation from Krishna, in this particular example, Krishna faints when he's with her? No, because it's a type of this viraha, this Mahabhav, but mixed with sambhog also, meeting. Krishna's in Dwarka, long absence from Radharani. And the analogy is he's lying in the royal quarters, sleeping quarters, and now he's with actually Rukmini and embracing her. And which is the most intimate moment of meeting with a husband and wife. lawful queen, Rukmini, his first queen. And somehow Radharani, in remembrance, something brings it up in her heart, and her heart becomes inflamed. That's why it says Sudita means bonfire. If you know what a bonfire is, huge conflagration, conflagration in her heart. It's burning. Not just smolder, there's something called smoldering. There's all these different things. There's smoldering, there's dumita, then there's udita and sudipta, dipta. There's like smoldering, there's different intensities of burning and rage. So this is sudipta. So Radharani enters into this state. It's a state of love. It's the most exalted, unique state of love that Radharani enters, experiences, and then Krishna also experiences the reverberations of that love. And he's in Dwarka, and we were saying that just see the power of prabhav of Radharani's love, the vibration. How powerful is the loving vibration? We sit here and we send a microwave signal and it bounces us on a satellite and goes 20,000 kilometers to China. And we talk as if the man is right next to us. So that's some mundane material vibration. It's simply the extension of vibration through mechanical means. And what about the vibration of Mohan Adiruddha Mahabhav? How far it can go and what it can create in the Creator. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. Krishna is the Creator, but when Radharani enters this state of Mohan Adiruddha Mahabhav, then the Creator becomes created. He becomes, something happens to him. And it creates a volcano in his heart. He was in a very peaceful, secure, happy, blissful place, lying in bed embracing Rukmini. Couldn't be a better location. This is the most desirable place to be in the world for any lover and beloved. This is the epitome of the whole thing in this world, union. There he is, with the most beautiful woman in the world, Rukmini. And then Radharani is in Vrindavan, lying somewhere near Nandagram, maybe at Uddavakyari. She's definitely far from Varsana and far from Yavat. She's the first, wasn't even a Madhukari Baba. She wasn't doing Madhukari, she was just wandering, falling here and there, wearing the same dress. What do they call this? Chunari, and the bottom one's called Lengra. What's called Lengra? Lenga and Chunari. Just wandering there and going like this and smelling the fragrance of Krishna's body from that fateful day when he went to Mathura. It's a unique fragrance. It's not only the fragrance of Krishna's body, but it's the fragrance of the tears that she cried at that moment. First, the cloth is suffused with the ganda of Krishna's body, the musk and camphor and aguru, sandalwood. Of course, that's the base. Sandalwood oil base. That's the base, but then that's impenetrated. That base is impenetrated with all of Krishna's bhavas and Krishna's intensity of love for Radharani. That's the fragrance emanating from Krishna's body when he's with Radharani. And then that was absorbed and suffused throughout Radharani's cloth. And then she's crying, Govinda Damodara Madhaveti, Govinda Damodara Madhaveti, Govinda Damodara Madhaveti, and fainting. And just total abhishek, Premashru abhishek, different category. The same kind of abhishek that Krishna caused Radharani caused Krishna. When Krishna became Mahaprabhu, then he took the Govardhan Shila, and he would also do Prem Abhishek for the Govardhan Shila. He would bathe the Govardhan. For 3 years he was worshipping Govardhan Shila, and he was bathing the Govardhan Shila with the tears of love. Premashru. Now he can experience the tears of Mahabhav. Radharani was crying tears of Mahabhav. So that fragrance of Radharani's tears mixed in her cloth with Krishna's fragrance and not all dried. So Radharani never changed her clothes. And so maybe this particular day, like this, I went into Mohan Adiruddha Mahabhav. And now Krishna, when he was, it's the moment that Radharani's sattvic ecstasy, sattvic bhav, reached the Sudipta state, totally, absolutely inflamed. And at that moment, Krishna, that's when she sent, SMS. And it went right, it pierced, we said pleasantly piercing, piercingly pleasant. This Adiruddha Mohan Bhav is pleasantly piercing, piercingly pleasant. This is too much captivating. Simple but captivating and deep. Simple yet deep. That at that moment, that vibration, that wave went all the way to Dwarka, and Krishna went all the way, lying with Rukmini, he fainted, which is pralaya. Pralaya means the topmost level of sattvic bhav. And Rukmini, maybe, of course she's not so naive, but it's possible she could have thought he fainted in the ecstasy of my loving embrace. No, I'm sorry. She knows better. Because when he's lying, sleeping, he's not saying Rukmini, Rukmini, he's saying Radha, Radha, Radha. So she probably, just to enter into the Leela for a second, although we have no right, but Rukmini probably thought, here he goes again. Here he goes again. I'm with my Dwarkadish in the most intimate exchange of confidential feelings in amorous affairs, and the morcha, unconscious, he swoons and oh, here he goes again, remembering Radharani. Radha Rani ki Jai Jai Shri Radhe. This is the power of love. As Prabhupada said in one place, that Krishna becomes a doll in the hands of Radharani. So now, weeping, this is a characteristic. Now this is amazing. Because first we said that Krishna, God is affected. Then there was the other one that, then we said suffering, unbearable suffering for the happiness of Krishna. The Radharani is willing to undergo unbearable suffering, and of course that's described in Natya Leela. In Radharani's own commentary on the Shilshiva Parvatam Panashtamam. And then the third one was sorrow to the entire world. So this is a fourth characteristic of Mohan Adiruddha Mahabhav. Weeping animals. Krandan Pashu. Crying animals. This is pretty extensive. That Radharani's heart affects the heart of Krishna. Radharani's and Krishna's heart affects Radharani's heart. That's the second symptom. And the third symptom is Radharani's heart affects Vaikuntha world and all the Jagat, all this world, Tri Jagat. And Radharani's heart affects the animal world. The Pashu. Most extraordinary influence. I mean, this is the same as Krishna. We say Krishna, all attractive. He attracts, usually humans attract humans. Pigs aren't, a male pig is not attracted to a beautiful female human, even if she's Miss India. He'll only be attracted at a particular moment of the day when she makes a particular offering to the earth. Otherwise, there's no attraction. But Krishna, the birds are attracted. When Lord Chaitanya came to Govardhan and came to Vrindavan, and all the birds are flying overhead looking at him and singing and chanting his name, and the cows are coming and licking him, and all the squirrels are following him. It was like the Pied Piper. It's a children's story about the Pied Piper went out of the village and took all the rats that had bubonic plague, and they were causing this plague everywhere, so he played some pipe and they all danced around behind him and went out of town. At least that's the way I remember it. This characteristic is weeping animals, and this is described in Ujjvala Nilamani in verse 136. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad says that even the aquatics in the Yamuna The animals are crying, okay, the deer are crying, we can see deer, they have moist eyes, and the cows are crying, and the different things, different animals. But the term it's used is pashu, means weeping animals, but the example is given, even the fish, even the aquatics, which are not very evolved bodily form. Jiva is the same, but the bodily form is not very evolved in the terms of evolution. The consciousness is not very evolved, extremely covered. He says, even the aquatics, swimming in the Yamuna, they weep upon hearing Radharani crying in a deep anguish of her separation from Shyam. These are the most mystical and extraordinary descriptions of reality that could ever pass through the ear canal. It's super mundane to the highest extent. That some woman, let's say, is crying, and a fish in the water identifying with her feelings and crying in sympathy with her. But there's no limitation to the extent of prema tattva. If nothing else, we're hearing these topics, and it certainly stretches our heart in the direction of Radharani. And that's the whole intention of Rupa Goswami, that the usual Nilamani for the sadhaka, for the siddha, he relishes nectar. All the verses there dripping with prem ras. But he didn't say this is only, he didn't write any forewarning in the cover of the book that Ujjwal Nilamani is only for the siddhas. Although there are great devotees in our line that were advised not to read it, Ujjwal Nilamani, but we, let's say, lucky followers of Srila Prabhupada, we have not been admonished or warned that way not to read Ujjwal Nilamani. Rather, Srila Prabhupada is encouraging us in the purpose of his books that we must read the books of the Goswamis. And this is an extreme extension of mercy by Srila Prabhupada. Even his own guru was a little more restrictive than that in what books they could read. So Prabhupada was, although sometimes the modern narrow-minded people of the world, they don't understand the depth of Srila Prabhupada's perception or understanding of Gaudiya Siddhanta, and they sometimes criticize, but Prabhupada was extremely liberal to the extent of presenting a very standard presentation of Gaudiya Siddhanta, and the appropriate books and the necessary books. He gave us a carte blanche to read all the books when the appropriate adhikar is there and ruchi is there under proper guidance and eligibility. This is great mercy on us. Because the age is such that we demand these things. This is information technology, and we have a lot. The Gaudiya Sampradaya has lots of information about Radha and Krishna. The fifth symptom is, again, inconceivable, but craving death. Craving, desiring, wanting to die. Craving death. Why? In order to serve Krishna with her body elements. We may be somewhat experienced people of the world, and maybe have lots of experience in different levels, and even think we have some idea about love, or relationships, or loving relationships. And maybe we've experienced individually some very intense and rewarding and fulfilling relationships in our life. Probably not many have, but at least at some point, because mother is there, father is there, friends, lovers, etc. There's many opportunities to experience warm and deep relationships in different modalities of feelings. But this is pretty incredible, what is being said here. And what does that mean? What does it mean? Radharani wants to die. Of course, she's transcendental. Sachidananda Vigraha. Sarup Shakti of Krishna, Taramnu Shakti. There's no question of death, nor birth. But this is Nara Leela. These are human-like pastimes. And we're very much human. and we're not in any pastimes, or we could say we're in Shristi Leela, as we were discussing the other day. We're in Mahavishnu. Yes, people say, yes, we're in Krishna's pastimes, and we left. No, we're in Krishna's pastimes, and we stayed. We're still there. We're in Krishna. We didn't leave Krishna's pastimes. We're definitely in Krishna's pastimes. Which Krishna? Because there are many Krishnas. Do you agree? Yes? Is there Purna Krishna in Dwarka, and there's Purnatara Krishna in Mathura Nath, and then there's Purnatam Krishna, Shyamasundar and Vrindavan. So we're in Krishna's pastimes, yes, and we never left Krishna's pastimes, and we have an eternal relation with Krishna in his pastimes as Mahavishnu. So we're still in the Leela very much, and we're serving very nicely and dancing to the tune of Maya, who is also a servant. But we want to change our location. We want to upgrade our position to the transcendental realm, and to dance to the tune of a different drummer in the Leela of Krishna. And that Krishna, okay, Mahavishnu, I did this thing for a long time. It's nice, but I'm submitting an application, and I'm hoping you'll accept it. And I'm putting it through the proper channels, and I hope you'll accept my petition that I'm eligible enough and qualified enough with the proper bhav and the proper intensity of surrender and dedication, that you'll recognize and accept my application, and let me play on the stage of divinity in the spiritual world, and Braja Gokul. And I don't want to go to Aishvarya Golok either, because that's the catch. You finally get eligible to go to Goloka, quote unquote, back to Godhead. Then you look closely at your ticket and say, wait a minute, this ticket says Aishvarya Golok. All right. But I want to go to Madhurya Golok. I didn't know there's two. You didn't do the proper bhajan. And this is told in Brihad Bhagavatamrita in chapter 28 of the 10th canto of Tikas, when Krishna showed the spiritual world to the Brajavasis, it's told in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that Godhead that we want to go to, well, guess what? There's a variety, there's hierarchy. There's Radha and Krishna, and they're all there in the spiritual world in Vrindavan, in Goloka Vrindavan, but it's Aishvarya Goloka Vrindavan. There's no Kunja Leela. There's no Ras Leela. It's like deity worship. Let's say live deity worshipers. The deities are alive. You know, this is described. So we better be careful that we get the right ticket at the ticket booth. So now, the fish are crying. I mean, we have to take these things seriously, and our tendency, because we're so superficial and uneducated and generally critical, that we scoff at such unusual topics. We scoff, or we jeer, or we reject, or that's just ridiculous. But it's very deep. I mean, you can dive as deep as the tanks on your back and the weights on your ankle. If you have no weights on your ankle, no scuba tanks, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, scuba tanks, and you can't dive too deep. But this Rupa Goswami is the deepest that there is. There's no one deeper than Rupa Goswami. He has entered into the heart of Radharani. He's Sri Rupa. His heart is Radharani, the form of Radharani. What is that form? It's Mahabhav. Mahabhav is reflected there the most, in Rupa Goswami, Rupa Madri's heart. It's like you have a mirror, and you're catching the sun in your mirror, darpan, and you angle the mirror. So the potency of the sun is in your mirror, and then you angle it, and somebody else has a mirror, and they catch your reflection from you. Then he angles that, and then you have a mirror, and you catch. You see, it's like parampara. So Radharani is the son of Prem, and his Bhav is Prema Sriyamshu. Prema Sriyamshu. It's like a ray of that Prema of Radharani. Radharani is a Premali Radha. It is a Shakti. She is the origin of the Prem. Prem Ashray. The recipient, the object of Prem is the Vishai Sri Krishna. So Radharani, she's emanating that sun, that beautiful, brilliant sun of Mahabhav. And the first person with the first mirror to catch it is Sri Rupa Manjari Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Manjari Pada Ki Jai. then she takes the mirror and angles it to Rati Manjari and Labanga Manjari, Kasturi Manjari, Manjulali Manjari, Rasa Manjari, Raga Manjari, Guna Manjari. And then finally, we have a little tiny mirror here. We're trying to get this little mirror in our heart. Like we have, some people have big satellite dishes on the top of their offices, big, huge, right? Big thing in the center and all kinds of whatever that means. They get 3,000 Maya channels on their TV. And we have itna, little tiny little thing, for 50 rupees, right? So we get a few channels, right? So we have this little mirror in our heart, Cheto Darpana Marjana. Guru has given us a mirror. I mean, we have the mirror. But he's trying to, look, here's a rag, clean it off. So we're waiting for that reflection from the heart of Rupa Goswami. Weeping animals. If one is actually tadatmika with this, even in English, what to say the Sanskrit. If one reads this and thinks of Radharani, and thinks of how great her love is, and thinks of Vrindavan and Yamuna and the fish, then he also will, at least in some imitative way, because it's so powerful. There's so many feelings and deep bhavas that they're irresistible and that they're unblockable. I can't think of the word. Unstoppable. They just go. I mean, if Radharani's heart goes all the way to Dwarka, it goes all the way to the Mars. As we heard, the whole universe identifies. So we're also in the universe. And that universe of Radharani's heart is eternally existing. She's somewhere in this universe, isn't it? Or not, let's say another Brahmanda. But it's all part of one firmament. It's all part of the Shripad Vibhuti. She's out there somewhere in Prakat Leela. And she's right at this moment, and at every moment experiencing these ecstasies of Mohan Adiruddha Mahabhav. And right at this moment in the Yamuna, the fish are crying. This is a fact. And where are we and where is this reality? And how do we breach the gap and shrink the distance? That's by our bhajan, or non-bhajan, and by the kripa we receive from Mahant Kripa, Guru, Bhajan Guru, Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru, Vaishnava Seva, Vaishnava Kripa. Then we read, and then somehow some of that microwave of vibration of prema comes in our heart, and we actually read this and we cry. I mean, I've heard sannyasis giving classes, they're speaking about Dhruva Maharaj. How we got Dhruva Maharaj, okay. You're speaking about Dhruva Maharaj, and then his stepmother threw him off the lap. And we think, okay. He starts reading, he's just crying. He starts crying. This is not Ras Leela, it's not Kunja Leela, Rati Keli, or anything. This is little 5-year-old kid, his Suniti, or whatever it was, throws him off her lap and says, "You're not qualified. Sit here on your father, the king's lap, Uttamapad." And he just felt, he entered so deeply into that experience and that exchange of rasas and feelings of rejection and all these things that he was crying. So Rupa Goswami wants to reflect his light of mercy and love of Radharani on our hearts. So he's given us these verses in these books. That's why it seems like, oh, it's a very small book, Ujjwal Nilamani. You can read it in a few hours. But did you read it? One verse is good enough for a lifetime. The fifth symptom, this is the fourth one, weeping animals. And in the analogy that Rupa Goswami gives, he doesn't even speak about what we consider an animal. I never thought of a fish as an animal. Fish is a fish. But he wants to say, okay, animals, obviously even we have some vague idea that cows weep and cry, and even Prabhupada describes that in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, in his Krishna book. He said, the cows in Vrindavan have learned. What about us? The cows in Vrindavan have learned the art of crying for Krishna. We have learned the art of crying for prasadam. I want prasadam, food. The cows, means pashu buddhi, animal intelligence. They're not considered the most very intelligent beings, although very affectionate, gentle, innocent, pure, beneficial. So Prabhupada is saying, see, look at this, where are you and where are they? I won't say where are we, and I don't mean to say you. I say, where are we and where are those cows? Jaya, everything's worshipable in Vrindavan, right? Jaya Dvijapati, Jaya cows, Jaya sewer, guy, pigs, dogs, everyone, all Jaya, all of them. I mean, the dogs here are different. There's a dog in the temple of, what do you say, Radha Gopinath, Prachin Mandir Radha Gopinath, where there's Nityananda's Baitak. And the dog is a dog, some black dog, and then it's just sleeping here and there, doing what dogs do. And then evening arti comes, and they start singing, and not so much singing, but playing gongs and the usual standard ritual of evening arti, Sandhya arti. And then the dog, wherever he is, or she, or whoever it is, where the dog comes and sits like this, like the Sphinx of Egypt or something. Sits very, nicely facing the deities. Of course, not supposed to point your feet towards the deity, but I didn't want to advise the dog about that fine point of nectar devotion. So his feet are very, very nice, like this, looking at deity, raising his, ow, 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 ow. They're going dong, 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 ow, then dong, then ow, then crawls back somewhere and goes to sleep. Service finished, kirtan over. This is just one of the magical members of the Vrindavan landscape. One of the magical members of the Vrindavan landscape. The trees are magical, the dogs are magical. I mean, the people are the most unbelievably magical. So now, I'll take this one. So I'm telling you things that you probably haven't seen too much in the West. I could write a book about it. And now it's dawn time at Radhakund. The sun has just little light in the sky. Monkeys are just waking up. Dogs are just waking up. And the dogs are sleeping on the sides on the steps of the kund, and the monkeys are sleeping on the roof. So the monkeys start jumping down to go to the sabji market and get their sabji for the day, do their shopping. Of course, they're rather, really into health food, so they don't cook anything. They just eat everything raw, get the pure ras of everything. So they go there and collect their sabji for the day, albeit not so much appreciated, but the same monkeys go to the same sabji wallas and steal sabji every single day. And I see the same sabji wallas and the same monkeys doing the same thing, and every day they say, oh! Next day, 24 hours later, the monkey comes and steals some sabji, and again they go, oh! And this just goes on. So now the monkey jumps down, and then there's some dog is just walking here or there, and the monkey, there's a little dog and a little monkey, about the same proportion of maturation. So he jumps on the dog, and the dog is just walking, and he gets startled, he starts running, and the monkey just holds on to his fur. It looks like a jockey, jockey's like a horse rider in a horse race. And he says, because he has 4 hands, so it's really hard to shake him, and he has good balance too. So he's sitting like this, the monkey's going 50 feet this way, and turns around 50 feet this way. I almost drowned in the Radhakund. I was chanting Gayatri up to my neck, and I was almost fainted. I forgot about the Gayatri. I was just going like this and like this. and laughing, say Radharani, these guys must have been doing the same things to entertain you and Krishna, 5,000 years ago. This is your Radhakund, and these are your monkeys, and you must have bathed here, obviously, and seen these same antics going on, because Krishna has pet dogs. It says Krishna has pet dogs, Brahmaraka and Vyagra. What kind of dogs they are, I don't know, spiritual dogs. What kind of dogs these are also spiritual dogs. Krishna has a spiritual dog friend. It's Radha Krishna Ganadesh Deepika, for those lawyers in the audience. And the names are there, and it says two. Two means whatever, but they're there. They're part of the parishas of Krishna, dog. So these dogs are in Vrindavan, and Prakat Leela and Aprakat Leela depends on us, not Krishna. Krishna is always prakat for Krishna. Krishna doesn't become invisible or unmanifest. He's always manifest in Vrindavan. But for the undeserving, he's unmanifest. For the deserving, he's manifest. So therefore, Prabhupada said, first deserve, then desire. I would like to say, when we're deserving, then Krishna will desire to see us. How do you like that? Prabhupada said, first deserve, then desire. So what does that all mean? Well, deserving is obvious. It means to acquire the adhikara, the purity, the intensity, the attachment, the lobha, the greed, to be with Krishna, to serve Krishna, to associate with him, especially Radha. So deserving adhikara. And then that will create, first deserve, then Prabhupada said, first deserve, then desire. That's all he said. So maybe deserving's on our side and desiring's on Krishna's side. We have to do deserving, and we become so deserving that Krishna says, oh, you really have qualification. I desire to be with you. I desire to see you. And obviously if Krishna desires to see us and reveals himself to us, automatically we see him, or she, or her. Weeping animals, craving death, to serve Krishna with her bodily elements, bhumerapo nalo vayu, earth, water, fire, air, ether. What does this mean? Craving death? I love you so much I want to die and serve you. You're my everything, the standard stock phrases that lovers tell each other around the world. You're my everything. I cannot live without you. You make me more happy than anyone in the universe. So that's told in French, German, Russian, Hindi, Bengali, English, every single language, the same lines. If anyone knows, they know. If they don't know, then don't find out. So now, I love you so much. I love you more than anything. I want to die right now to serve you. I want to die to serve me? How will that serve me if you die? This is what he says. Ujjwal Nilamani describes that Radhika desires to die so that the 5 elements of her body, because Radharani doesn't know that she's Bhagavati. She doesn't know that Krishna is Bhagavan. Oh, Krishna is Bhagavan and I'm Bhagavati? He is the Shakti, he is a Shaktiman, I am a Parashakti. I am Radha, I am Radhika. I am Vrishabhanu Nandi, my mother is Kirtita, my father is Vrishabhanu, my elder brother is Sridham, my younger sister is Anagamantri. And then there's this beautiful boy in our village. And there's so many villages with beautiful boys, but this is the one I have my eye on. And I love him. And he seems to love me also. That's all that counts. That's all that matters. I didn't go to the Institute of Technology. I didn't go to any graduate school. He's a beautiful boy of our village and I love him. That's enough. So now she's saying that so she thinks I have a material body with earth element, water element, fire element. This is her thinking. As we know we have so much 75% water in this body, then so much bones and minerals and all these things. She wants to die, Radhika wants to die, so the 5 elements composing her body may mix with nature and serve Krishna. Now then Rupa Goswami explains one by one the elements. Radha wants the water of her body to merge in Pavan Sarovara, to serve Krishna when he swims there. Pavan Sarovara is at the base of Nandishwar Parvat, the hill upon which Krishna and Balaram live with Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda. And that's was established by Krishna's great-grandfather, Parjanya, I believe. And the boys, after they come home with the cows and settle up the cows in the Goshala, and milk them and wrestle and play. Then they go for a swim there, as boys like to do, big or small boys. They swim and refresh themselves and cleanse themselves. And so that would be, Radharani is choosing to let me die and let the water element of my body go there and mix in the Pavan Sarovar. Because then I can wait all day in the Pavan Sarovar, because Krishna will go out all day, and I know when he comes back, when he comes inside the water, then I will serve him. I will wrap myself around him, front and back, and I'll cover his head, and I'll wash his beautiful hair, and I'll wash his body and all the dust from his Goraj, the Goduli, Brajaraj, I will wash from his body, and this way I will render service. These statements and Rupa Goswami's writings about Radha and Krishna, they make the love poems of this world and the love stories of this world look like some scene from a desert. It loves the best love stories with the most beautiful adjectives and descriptions and scenery. If you compare it to these, it's no comparison. Radhika wants the fire element of her body to mix in Krishna's mirror. Because a mirror, in order for it to work, it requires some light. In the dark you can't see anything. So the fire element will mix in the mirror and give it that brilliance, because that tage of a mirror, and oftentimes mirrors are not made of glass with some silver oxide chemical on the back of it or whatever it is, but they're made of polished metal, a piece of silver or brass, or usually it's brass or bell metal. They polish it very finely, and that's used for a mirror in the ancient times. So there's a certain shine in that mirror, and shine and reflective quality which enables one to see his image clearly. So Radharani wants to be that fire, that tage in that mirror, to serve Krishna when he's looking in the mirror. In other words, Radharani is really absorbed. This is Radharani's thinking, these are her feelings, these are her prayers when she's separated from Krishna. Mohan, Adiruddha Mahabhav. These are the characteristics. And obviously these prattlings, there's a word in English, these prattles or these utterances of Radharani are verging on the point of madness. Or they may even be considered to be mad outbursts. And these characteristics that are going in this Mohan, Adiruddha Mahabhav, there are 6 of them, and each one is a little bit more intense than the other one. So let's listen. Radharani wants the ethereal, the calm, the sky, the ethereal element to mix in the sky of Krishna's courtyard in Nandagram, Nanda Bhavan. Like this is a courtyard of some sort, a yard, and there's walls surrounding Nanda Maharaj's house. And Krishna goes out in the courtyard to enjoy the gardens, and Krishna Kaumudi says there are lakes inside like we have like a little, whatever, flower pond. But now Krishna's his father's a king, so he's a very large courtyard, and there are lakes inside the courtyard, and beautiful gardens, and lots of trees. It's like an encapsulated forest, mini forest bounded by some walls. So Krishna goes there. Now, Radharani wants to be the air, and it wants to be this, everyone's feeling the air, but if they put a lid on top of these walls and put a vacuum here and took out all the air, then we wouldn't be here very long. So the air element, that prana, that ether, is very much essential for our very existence. So Radharani wants to float in Krishna, and not the courtyard of Nanda Bhavan. She wants to float there. And Krishna goes out and says, "Oh, it feels so fresh here." So she wants to be the sky in his courtyard. her air element, the air element of her body, she wants to mix with the air of Krishna's chamara fan. Because, totally they have some type of fan also, hand-propelled fan, but this is just an immediate, close-range chamara fan, which not only is very soothing, but it's more specific than that it emits a particular aroma, which is not so much appreciated by the flies. Of course, whether they had flies in Krishna's Leela, that's doubtful, highly doubtful, because there's no disturbing elements. Everything is a contributing element. But nevertheless, the chamara does that, and kings would have chamaras because that fragrance would help them. And moreover, the very fine hair is very easy to, if there's some fly that gets near the king, if a little hair of the chamara hits the king's forehead or hits his hair, he practically won't even feel it. He'll not be disturbed. So if they take some peacock fan and they give him a tap, then he'll feel it and be disturbed. So it's a very fine and precise form of fan, the yak tail fan of the chamara, for the chamari, deer or cow or whatever it is, some animal originally in the forest. So Radharani wants to be the air inside that chamara. She wants to be the air. Of course, this is what when people say, well, how do you mix Raganuga with Vaidhi Sadhana? There's Archan Marg in Vaidhi, and there's Archan Marg in Raganuga. So in Archan Marg we have Arti, and we have Chambara and Dup and Deep. So when one has some attachment for Radha and Krishna and their Braj Leela, and his attachment takes his mind to memories and thoughts of those Leelas, then when he's fanning the deity, say for example he's fanning Krishna, Radha Shyam, or whatever, then his mind may go to this thought. Radharani's praying in Ujjwala Nilamani that I want to be the air in this chamara. Radharani, have you entered this chamara? And if you're entering this chamara, if you're the air in this chamara, then how will you fan this chamara? Of course, we may think, well, how will Rupa Manjari fan? If you're fanning, how would Rupa Manjari hold a chamara, and how would she fan Radharani? Because now I'm in my Manjari Swarup, and I've been asked to fan Radharani at the Yoga Pit or any place, and so on the altar we see, I think it's Vishaka has a chamara fan, at least here. So it means she knows how to do it. There's so many thoughts, and these type of thoughts, they automatically come when one comes to practice Raganuga Sadhana. They accumulate because of his Shravana Dasha, his intense hearing throughout his life, and interest and taste for these topics develops to such an extent that it saturates his memory. So then when he engages in the rudiments and practices of bhakti, then it all percolates and rises from his memory to fill his mind and senses with some very sweet experience. And this is what we talk about, ruchi. And ruchi is generally accepted by most acharyas as the borderline beginning of genuine Raganuga bhakti, as a separate practice. And without ruchi, then it's Raganuga bhakti. It can be mixed with Vaidhi bhakti. So then the earth element of Radha's body, after she dies, she wants the earth element to mix with the land on which Krishna walks. She wants to be the carpet under Krishna's feet. In the West, they have wall-to-wall carpets. At some places, everywhere there's a rug or a dari rug, carpet. And so wherever Krishna walks, that earth, Radharani wants to be there. Let that be me. But tomorrow we'll talk about divine madness, as if what we're discussing isn't mad enough. If you haven't gone mad by hearing these topics, then you'll really go mad tomorrow. This of course is called the famous Divyanmad. This is the last stop, you could say, the highest expression of Mohan Adiruddha Mahabhava is Divyanmad. Sometimes called Divyanmad, Madanakya or Mohanakya. And that's where we get to that's Brahmar Gita. Shukadeva Goswami wanted to show the top expression there. If you understand the top expression, then these other lesser developed characteristics are automatically included. So Brahmar Gita has the Chitra Jalpa and Udgurna, these two symptoms we'll discuss yesterday, which are depicted quite clearly in the Brahmar Gita. Radharani's talk with the bumblebee. And that's the last level of Monaki or Mohan Mahabhav.